This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Andrew Bell, who is the chairman of Power Metal Resources, is with us today on Stockbox. Now, Andrew, we normally speak to you in your capacity as CEO of Red Rock Resources, but of course you are as well the chairman at Power Metal Resources. So welcome, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yes, Red Rock was one of the shareholders who put in money at the time of the reconstruction of Power Metal Resources, and Paul and I go back a long way in doing some business together. Normally he would be speaking, and he's an expert on all of this. Also, of course, is Roger Key, who runs Kalahari Key, that has been doing the exploration for us in Botswana. Power Metal Resources has a 40% direct and I think 13% indirect stake in this project through Kalahari Key. But Paul was unable to make it this evening. He got something he simply couldn't change. And I've been on the technical committee of KKME discussing the drilling as we've been going through. So I know enough about it to be able to say something.
Okay, well, it's great to be talking to you here as well, Andrew. So, of course, we're going to be talking about the RNS that Power Metals have released with news on the Molopo Farms complex in Botswana, which is the company's nickel project. So, can you break this down for us, Andrew, and tell us what does it really mean?
Well, it's very interesting because Roger Key, who worked for many years for the British Geological Survey, he got enthusiastic about this area because he saw it as a feeder zone. Now, the feeder zone is with oceanic rocks that are much thinner than continental rocks. They tend to come up at mid-ocean trenches, and like a sort of moving staircase, they gradually go towards the continents, and then they get subducted. So they aren't usually more than 200 million years old, never thick. But where they come up, or where faults appear in them, the magma from underneath the Earth's crust can come up, and the magma will contain a lot of olivine containing magnesium and iron salt and pyroxene, and as this is happening underwater, the action of water, H2O, on these can result in their transformation into other minerals or mineral assemblages, and that is how these serpentinite structures develop. And what that means is that the magnesium has been carried away by water as the water has reacted with the minerals that come up from the magma and expanded it, and then nickel preferentially attaches to a lot of this to form nickel. So you get nickel enriched mineralization, primary and secondary nickel minerals form, and where these systems are big, for example, in Norilsk in Russia, where there was a huge event which created a mass extinction, the Siberian traps, and so that mobilized a lot of magma and a lot of water, and that was on such a big scale that it created, as the magma came up, one of the biggest nickel mineralization area in the world. Then you've got Sudbury in Canada, where again there was a meteorite strike, and that created a huge indentation, a crater in the surface of the Earth, and heated everything up and created cracks through which magma poured up, and again had water go into it, and it was metamorphosed, and you ended up with all the Sudbury nickel deposits. Now, things on that scale don't happen very often. The reason why Voisey Bay in Canada is significant is because you had quite a large-scale event. Now, here we've got a feeder zone that was identified by Roger Key, and there was very little geology in the area, and he was very smart to have seen this potential, because this is a big structure. I mean, when the magma's coming up, from underneath the crust. It is obviously not a small event. It's not a trickle. It's something big. And then if it's happening underwater, as it's likely to be, the water flows through it. The feeder zone, which brings it up, is likely to see water flows, and it's likely to see magma flows. And if they're on a sufficient scale and there's not enough flow through to carry away the excess magnesium, you'll get all the right minerals deposited. And so the thinking was that if you could find nickel mineralization in this area, it had the potential to be a very large system. And that's what this has all been about. And amazingly, the hole that had been planned by Roger as the first hole, and then the geophysicist came along and pointed out that in another area towards the edge of the inferred feeder zone, there was mineralization, a target nearer the surface. And of course, beneath the Kalahari Sands, you don't want to be getting too deep because that adds to the expense of perpetual mining. So we tried that first. But even though this was the second hole, it was the first hole from which we sent samples to be tested in a laboratory. And the first batch of samples has come back. There's another batch that will be tested. And they have come back with these, I would say, extraordinarily good results. And we felt that we couldn't sit on it, so we've announced it.
Okay, so that very clearly explains the sort of the model of the magmatic feeder structure that you're talking about. But these results then specifically, are they good? Is this a good day?
Yes, I mean people may be more familiar with, for example, copper in this country, and if you look at a sort of copper grade that will make an economic mine, it's likely to be somewhat higher than nickel. The reason the nickel price is much higher than the copper price is because it's more difficult to find and more difficult to win, and the structures can involve going down quite deep. If you look at mines that have been brought into production, they have been brought into production at these grades and lower. So, of course, there's a long way to go, but as a starting point, this is terrific. Your very first hole, you come up with over a width of actually over 300 meters. You've got different zones in the hole, which are containing nickel. And we only tested the zones that looked interesting already because we saw some fracturing or because we thought we saw massive sulfide or visible sulfide. But if you look at the edges of the areas that have already been tested, you don't get a drop-off in the nickel grade on most of them, which means you could have sent more samples to be tested and you would have got some good results too. So now we know we have to send a whole lot more back to be tested, but that over a range of over 300 meters, we're getting nickel, and sometimes very good nickel, is a terrific start. Because it's fantastic that the very first hole has encountered nickel and good nickel, but it would be defying the odds. It would be like winning the lottery if this was actually the best nickel there. In any deposit, you're going to get areas with higher grades and areas with lower grades and so on. And you discover all of that by doing much more drilling and doing many more holes. And so the likelihood increases the bigger or wider space, the wider the system is, the likelihood is that with further exploration, you're going to get much better areas somewhere. And that would be where naturally you would think of producing first. The other thing that, of course, we want to discover as we explore, we want to discover the direction of the dip of this inferred feeder zone that I think we can now say is a proven feeder zone. And when we have a little bit more information, this is the first information that came back, but there is other sort of information coming. Some even came through this afternoon from another kind of geophysical process testing that's been done. As that information comes in, as we get more results in, and as we get results from another hole, we will move to the stage where cautiously, scientifically, we will, I hope, be able to define this as a discovery.
Okay. Now, you've mentioned there a couple of big discoveries, such as the one in Norilsk in Russia. So do you feel you're onto something here?
Well, you cannot exclude the possibility of something very large here, because you've got a big enough area and big enough structures for it potentially to be so. But I think if you look at the range of possibilities here, even towards the lower end of the range, you could get a very decent deposit.
Okay. So what's to come then, Andrew? I mean, the RNS mentioned samples have been sent for analysis, and I think there's some more holes that are perhaps being completed or being undertaken. So what's sort of going on, and what's next?
Well, the first hole was on the edge of the inferred feeder zone. And this one is more or less in the middle, but at one end. Now, what we've got to do ideally is to put a downhole tool down it and get some more information. The downhole tool that was available from our geophysicist, it broke, had to be repaired, has come along, it's come into the country. We're trying to make it work. Haven't got good results yet because we haven't been able to deploy it properly. But we'd like to get that. We've also got some information that has been coming through today, for example. We've got a projected density isosurface that we have been sent, which seems to relate to this structure, and that's 12.5 or 15 kilometers long. So we shall see more information about that. We have, obviously, we've got another hole, a third hole, which we've now drilled, and it's too early to have any results from that. So we're going to get core results from 3 holes. At the moment, we've just got some from part of one hole. We're going to get some downhole information, and we'll get more structural information as we get more information from the geophysics that's been done. And we also sent some samples off to Witwatersrand University for mineralogy, and they've come back with some thin sections that they've analysed. They're going to be doing some more work on that. And we have, even for this first batch of samples, we're having them tested for gold and platinum group metals. We haven't got those results back yet. So it's very fast moving. Probably in normal circumstances, we would not have made any announcement at this stage. But because these were very good results, we didn't think it was proper to withhold them from the market. We had an obligation to make an announcement, so that's what we did.
Okay, well, Andrew Bell, the chairman of Power Metal Resources, thank you very much for coming and talking to us today and explaining that RNS that Power Metals have put out.
But, you know, it's good news. And I think that it's going to be very difficult to kill this project. It's got a lot of life left in it and a lot of exploration left in it. And the prospects are now extremely good.
Great. Andrew Bell, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.